now we will move forward to our panel. So all our panelists, please turn on your camera. Thanks. Ron, are you with us? Perfect. So
yes,
we
I'm
will
here.
start. The panel is called the challenges and opportunities of cyber and machine learning. We will start by introducing our panel member. Ron, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, so my name is Ron Viton. I'm a principal research manager and a postdoctoral fellow at the Cybersecurity Research Center at the Ben-Gurion University. My research group focuses on the intersection of cybersecurity and machine learning. More specifically, we research the application of artificial intelligence and machine learning for solving cybersecurity problems and security and privacy aspect of machine learning, which also known as adversarial machine learning.
Perfect. Aviv?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Aviv Yechezkel, Cynamics co-founder and CTO, background PhD in computer science from the Technion. What we're doing in Cynamics is to collect 1% of network samples and use unique technologies that we develop, machine learning and AI, to learn about the full network.
Perfect. And Gershon?
Hi, so my name is Gershon Selniker. My background in cyber is that I was principal data scientist in Verint and then managed the research group at Verint, cybersecurity and SIGINT. And then I switched sides and I joined Checkpoint, and I was managing one of the main groups of data science in Checkpoint. And we were working mainly on threat prevention and other big projects. Now I'm managing one of the biggest groups in General Motors. It's part of the R&D, and the R&D has 4 groups. I'm managing one of them, and we're working on the future of mobility. And there are many cyber-related issues there. So we're working on autonomous vehicles in Adversarial.
Perfect. So thank you all for joining us. I will start with our first question. Will be a hard one. We'll start with a good question. I would like to understand from your perspective. You have a lot of experience to hear what is the main challenges in using AI in cybersecurity. We've heard it in the past lectures, and many of our great speakers mentioned several challenges. So I'll be happy to hear from your side. What do you think what is the main challenges? And we can start with Aviv. Would you like to start?
Yes, thank you. So I would like to stress 2 significant challenges that I see and we're dealing in on a daily basis. So the first one is obtaining the ground truth data. I mean, some real ground truth and specifically challenging ground truth, real life attack examples that we can use in order to train our models on, in order to test our models on. And this is a very, very difficult these days because attacks become more and more sophisticated, as we all know. And the data sets, the research data sets, are mainly the same ones for years now and not being updated so much. And the representative is not always clear. And we don't also want to create synthetic data sets because their effect is not very, very good. So how we can come up with challenging real-life attack examples in order to use throughout our processes. So this is one thing. And another one I want to stress is the explainability. So I know we discussed about it earlier. It was a very interesting talk. We're also dealing with the explainability, of course, from our side. How to explain the result of an anomaly that was detected, how to direct the cyber analyst, the network analyst, directly to the root cause, to the smoking gun, instead of just flagging an anomaly without any significant context. And under this explainability issue, I would specifically want to stress the aggregative kind of parameters. You know, there are parameters in the model that are very easy to explain, right? We can use some kind of feature importance. And once we found that these specific parameters are the most significant ones, it's very clear what is the impact, what is the effect. For example, let's say specific port, some unusual communication over a specific port or protocol, etc. So this is very clear. But what we can do with aggregative parameters, for example, some histogram, some kind of distribution parameter, how we can use this in order to direct the analyst to something insightful.
Interesting. Ron, would you like to add your opinion?
Yeah, so I think that most cybersecurity problems share three very specific properties. The first one is very big data. Most cybersecurity solutions scan millions of log events per day, even for a single host. So these events including system calls, network traffic, file access, and many more. So dealing with such a big data is challenging. The second property is highly imbalanced data, meaning that the vast majority of events are legitimate. For instance, for a typical EDR, in most of the days, all the events are legitimate. And the third property is concept drift. So the legitimate behavior of an host is rapidly changing over time. And by analyzing these three properties, I can deduce two main challenges. The first challenge is how to reduce the size of the data as much as possible while maintaining the semantics. And in order to address that challenge, in the cybersecurity domain, we will often use a very, I will say, sophisticated feature extraction methods in order to utilize the data, preserve its semantics, but compress it. And I think that the second challenge, which is also rooted with the two properties of very big data and highly imbalanced data, is how we deal with a large amount of false positives in the domain of cybersecurity. So I think that any data science can say, okay, false positives are a general problem in machine learning, but it is very important to know that in contrast to many machine learning problems, such as object detection and natural language understanding, where a false positive can be resolved in a few seconds by an unexperienced person. For example, in object detection, any person with a pair of eyes can resolve a false positive in a few seconds. In contrast, in the cybersecurity domain, false positives are resolved in several hours by experienced security analysts. And this creates a bottleneck in the security operations center. And therefore, addressing this challenge, and reducing the false positive on the one hand, and providing tools for the SOC analysts to investigate false positive faster are, I think, the second challenge that we face in the cybersecurity domain.
Right, Gershon, would you like to add your opinion?
So actually, I don't want to repeat Aviv's and Ron very good answers, but I will emphasize, the imbalanced data, it's a big issue. So even if you have a model with amazing F1, let's say 98, and the precision is 99.9, in the end, you still have a problem because the majority, for example, in Checkpoint, there was threat prevention on files and the processes running on the computer or network analysis. So the majority of the instances of the observations are benign, they're not malicious. And to get and the false positive rate is huge. So to cope with the huge imbalance, there are many other techniques that you can use, but it is a huge challenge. And the first number one pain is the label data, the ground truth. So in Checkpoint, for instance, in order to evaluate our models, I think it took around between 30 to sometimes even 50% of our time. Evaluation, not even training new models, just evaluating our products. That's a big thing if you think about it. And the number of analysts that gave us the ground truth and we somehow tried to evaluate ourselves on a sample, it was a huge effort and we had to do that. Without that, you don't know how good you are, which is a different story from Variant when you need to retrieve actionable intelligence and you can either you got the insights or you didn't. With Checkpoint, it was a tough one.
Okay, thank you for your view. I would like to move on to our second question, and now we will take it one step further We understand that we have challenges, but what about challenges in deploying and maintaining ML-based solution to real-time environments? And this is something that I get a lot from startups. Say, okay, it's working in our lab, but especially when we are talking about cyber defense and people want to be sure that it's fully automated, up to date. So how do you manage to just be sure that everything is working on real time on production environment? Aviv, would you like to take it?
Yes, thank you. So I would like to discuss the scale effect in both regards. First is the data size. So will the same model that we developed and worked well for small scale of networks, for 1 gig networks, will be able to generalize well to 10 gigs, 100 gigs, etc. And it's not only from the model perspective, but it can be a very significant issue from the processing aspect, from the ability to keep being real time and enable results in few seconds, as we had with the smaller scales, also in the higher scales. So this is about the data size. Another aspect is the network size. So will the same model, the same architecture that worked well for, let's say, a simple network architecture with just one gateway, let's say, will it be also generalized well for two gateways, for several gateways, for now a more complicated architecture spanning between different sites, between different locations? So this is really several aspects that I see challenges, or significant challenges, interesting over them.
Juan?
So my domain of expertise is on the risk assessment and all the part of the SIEM and SOAR in the cybersecurity. And I think that with my main challenge is actually the data ingestion. So when you are operating above a SIEM tool, for example, Microsoft Sentinel, Splunk, or QRadar, you're receiving a lot of inputs data from the different sensors. And in many times, most of the input data represent the very similar behavior, but it is structured differently. And I think that putting all the different type of information in the very same scheme, in order for the data science to create a single model that will be agnostic to the changes of the monitoring environment is very challenging for a machine learning model that are deployed for the task of risk management, risk assessment, and response.
Okay, interesting. Gershon, what is your opinion on that?
So it's a big thing. Like once you have a model and you want to deploy it, and Ron has actually mentioned as a challenge, the constant drift. So data changes, and once you, like in my case, one of my products was it was dependent on many other engines that we used, and the engines, the cybersecurity engines, they also update, and then you have a different distribution. So you have a model, a meta classifier that uses many inputs of many other cybersecurity engines, and they are not constant. And you have to, and there's the constant drift is there, and you can see it all the time. So how do you deal with that? First of all, you need to have a trigger that something is wrong. You need to always evaluate and check your solution. So actually, when I was working on that, on this challenge, there wasn't companies like Superwise and Deep Checks that provide some monitoring solutions for online systems. Back then, we had to do it in-house, and we started to make something really keep it simple. And develop that we just that we evaluate our products on a daily basis, and we try to see if something gets wrong, something changes. For instance, the distribution of our prediction suddenly changes, so we understand that something is wrong. Maybe one of the inputs is not there, and we actually had one of the engines suddenly didn't work, and there was missing data all over. And there was some times that we detected it very late, weeks late. It's a big deal. So constantly monitoring your system online, it's very, very important. Nowadays, there are many solutions to do that. Many open source solutions and also commercial ones, and great Israeli startups on this field. It's amazing. So I think that's the main thing, to try to monitor it constantly to make sure that the product that we delivered is actually still good enough.
Okay, interesting. And now I think we can move on to another element of cyber is adversarial attack. And this is something that is threat to our, everyone who is deploying or developing machine learning algorithms. So I'll be happy to hear your thought about that. How you think it's mature? Because I see a lot of publication about labs that are managing to attack a model in the lab, but okay, they managed to do it in a digital way, as we said, but have you seen any actual usages of those technologies or actual threats that are being used as part of adversarial attacks? Ron, this is one of your fortes, so go, start.
So, actually, I've spent the last 2 years, I think, to research the domain of adversarial machine learning. And I think that, in my opinion, adversarial machine learning is a very major threat from the one end, but it is very often under-considered by both data scientists and even CISOs or SOC teams. I think that the 2 main reasons for that this threat is under-considered as that first, some security specialists consider adversarial machine learning as an active problem in the domain of computer vision, but not so practical in the domain, for example, of cybersecurity. If we specifically talk about the implementation of adversarial machine learning attack against cybersecurity solutions. And I believe that this argument is not correct. I think that in the past 2 years, we've seen many publications that utilize adversarial machine learning attack techniques also to manipulate the intrusion detection system and malware detection classifiers. And I think that the assumption that this is an active problem for computer vision, only for computer vision algorithm, it is not truly correct. I think that my second assumption of why this threat is underestimated is that some security specialists consider that adversarial machine learning threat model is a very strong threat model. So I believe that it is not correct. It was indeed correct until I think the past 3 years, where most of the attack require the attacker access to the internal parameters of the model. However, in the last 5 years, we see a lot of attacks that are based only on the decision of the model and do not require any access to model internal parameters. So I also think that this is not correct. I believe that the true reason that adversarial machine learning is considered by security specialists is because that they don't have tools to incorporate that risk in the risk management system. This is my belief. And I think that in order to bridge that gap, we need to talk with the cybersecurity specialists in the terms that they understand. As security researchers, or maybe as an academic security researchers, we talk about models and attack techniques and maybe some optimization function, but security analyst does not understand this kind of language. He understands CVE, TTP, attack tactic, procedures, and etc. And in order for I think for the SOC analyst to take care of this kind of risk, we need to formulate the risk in a way that the SOC analysts understand. And I think that is the actual challenge for the academic researchers in order to bridge this gap with the security analysts.
Okay, Gershon, what do you think?
So actually, I didn't experience an adversarial attack on my machine learning models in production.
Not that you are familiar, not that you're one that you know about.
That I don't exactly that I know about. I think the attacker needs to be very, very sophisticated and understand exactly what is my model and do that. But on the other hand, in the end, the cybersecurity, it's like a cat and mouse. Most of the attacks are adversarial, and they use the weak points of your model, and the weak points usually it's that you didn't train the model correctly, or they imitating trying to find another legit process or a network traffic or something like that. So it's very so in the end it's like it is under adversarial, and we're trying to always learn new attacks and to adjust the model against that, train again or try find new features. So that's a cat and a mouse, but like someone who attacked my model, it didn't happen to me yet, at least as to my knowledge. But with the new domain that I'm dealing with right now with the autonomous vehicles, think about perception. So you're riding right now on the road, and there's actually Ron's friend. I think he's doing a postdoc right now, Ben Nassi. He showed an interesting work on and he tested it on Tesla. What he did, he attacked Tesla by projecting on the road different signs, stop sign, give the right of way sign, and Tesla's perception system failed, and it's actually the car stopped because of some projection that you can do from a street, from another building or stuff like that. So this kind of attacks can happen on perception, on computer vision problems. And he proved that there is on a Tesla, I think it was 2 years ago, something like that there is a capability like that. Another feature is the connected cars, which is going to be a big thing, I think, in the next 5 years. And what you can do, you can mimic a car, and you can give an alert to everyone that there is a traffic jam right now, and everyone shouldn't take route number 2, and then when you will take the route number 2, it will be all open and there will be no traffic. That's actually some nice attack that I'm willing to do it every day from Netanya to Herzliya Pituach. That will be a nice one. So yeah, I think there is we need to be alerted about that, and there's vast work in the academia, and I think with time there will be more and more that we will need to adjust our models against these attacks, or like doing like a penetration test on our models before deploying them. Yeah.
Cool. The idea with freeing the road is a great idea. We need to develop that just before work. Aviv, would you like to say your thought about that?
Yes, thank you. I agree with Ron and Gershon. I really think that adversarial machine learning becomes a nice example of a theoretical idea from the first place that's becoming industrial relevant. And in our case, in Cynamics, we found out that the sampling approach is not only allowing us to be very scalable and very generic and agnostic, to be able to work with any kind of client network, etc., but also provides a built-in countermeasure against such adversarial attackers, because an existing attacker cannot know what packets will be randomly sampled and what not. So this randomization factor is adding a very significant portion against adversarial attack, which is much harder than some unsampled setting where the attacker can more easily ingest malicious training data that will be affecting the model. So this is the first point. The second point is that this is also the difference between passive to active solutions. So for example, our solution is passive. Attacker would not be able to know when we started to work in the client network, when we started to collect the samples and start to build our models, etc. So I think this is another interesting aspect that we need to consider with such regards.
Okay, perfect. And now we'll move on to our last question. I will ask you. That is something you can answer in like 1 or 2 sentences because we don't have much time. Is that what is the next challenges of AI and cybersecurity? We mentioned a lot of things here. So what do you think, in your opinion, will be the new trends, the new thing that people will focus on? So feel free to answer. Ron, would you like to start?
Yes, so I think I identified 2 main challenges. The first one is the identification of stealthy attacks. So if we talk about sophisticated attacks such as APT, they are very stealthy, meaning that for instance, according to a report published by FireEye, a typical APT resides 71 days at the average in the target system. So correlating between events on a time span of 71 days at average, it's very challenging, even for a very sophisticated algorithms. So I think that that is the first challenge. And I think that the second challenge is actually reducing the time taken by SOC analysts to analyze, investigate, and respond to cybersecurity incidents. And I believe that in order to address this challenge, the machine learning system must be able to provide informative and actionable explanations to the SOC analyst. And this is very challenging. And if we have time, I can elaborate on why this is challenging. But if don't...
I'm not sure we will have time. Let's hear everyone and then we will see. Gershon, would you like to share your
Just
thoughts?
one sentence. I think what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years, like the promise of the IoT didn't come until recently. I think now there is more and more IoT. So our houses are connected and there's Wi-Fi 6 and we have more and more gadgets around us. And from my perspective right now, the autonomous vehicles, we will have them all, it will be all around us. And think about, you're driving a car right now and it was hacked. That's a big problem. You won't be able to open the door, the car, you will be able, the hijacker can be able to take you wherever he wants to or to make an accident. It's a big, big issue. So I think that what I'm saying that there will be much more vectors to attack, and that will be a challenge to so there are many startups in cybersecurity for IoTs, but automotive is just the beginning, and we now going to have more and more connected cars coming in the next coming years, and they're all electric and they all have many features, and we have to make sure that we are actually capable of defending those. Yeah.
Interesting. So basically, as days go by, let's say autonomous vehicles will be a major part of our life, and therefore will feel and make it super meaningful for us if they will be attacked. So this is
think about like your computer. If your computer attacked, so let's say
you cannot do anything.
So they will steal your data and they will encrypt your data and there will be ransomware and stuff like that, but you will be safe, nothing will happen to you. If there is attack on the infrastructure of electrical company, for instance, so you won't have electricity for a couple of days or whatever, but the potential of, and we only heard, I think it was 2 months ago that there was a guy that hacked Tesla and he managed to stop the car. So now he only stopped the car, but if he stops the car in the middle of the highway, that's an issue.
You're doomed.
So I think the severity of attacks, not only on autonomous vehicles, but on many other aspects that we are dependent on, and we will have more and more of them, it's more severe. Yeah.
Interesting. Aviv?
Yes, so I would like to add 2 challenges. So the first one, we start to see it already today, is the encryption and data privacy concerns. So the majority of enterprise network traffic is encrypted, like more than 80%. And with the increase in encryption from one end and privacy issue concerns of clients from the other hand, we will need to reside from using the entire data and the payload and to really from deep packet inspection, etc., and be forced to use only network metadata, for example. And it will be very interesting to see how the next generation of our AI for cyber models will be able to cope with this. And this is one aspect. And the second one, which I think is going to be very interesting to see if it will be effective, is ethical AI considerations in AI for cyber. We see this becoming such a hot topic these days. So I just imagine for myself, like, what you would need to prove that the models are unbiased, that our model will not characterize, I don't know, communications, for example, from specific locations or specific organizations with higher likelihood as being malicious. I think it will be very interesting as well.
It sounds interesting. I think this is something that as a society, we will demand that, as I said before, to what Gershon said, that when we will see that AI has become it will have a major role in our life, then we'll start to think about what is actually is requested for us as a society to pay for that, and if it will be to be locked out of your car or if say something else. So I totally agree with that. And we are just right on time. It's 8 o'clock. So I would like to thank you all for participating in this panel.